Mary's family has owned a cottage on Sodus Bay for more than 60 years. Through the years, she would travel back and forth from her home in Fairport to the cottage in Sodus Bay and wonder about the many cobblestone buildings that she saw along the way. Did you know that our region has the largest collection of cobblestone structures in the entire nation? It's estimated that more than 1,000 cobblestone structures have been built in the United States, and approximately 700 of those exist within an hour's drive of the city of Rochester.
Wow.
A cobblestone is basically a large pebble, one that has been formed naturally by years and years of being tumbled by water until the edges are rounded and smooth. Why are there so many cobblestones in this area? Is there, I would think, is there anything unique about the construction of a cobblestone building? Where can I see some of these cool buildings? Well, let's find out, Mary. Thank you.
You're telling an awful lot of information I was going to say. As she said, our family has had this cottage for a long time, and Bill and I lived in Syracuse area for a long time, so it didn't matter if you were coming from Rochester or from Syracuse, you were bound to go by one of these cobblestone homes. And I used to wonder about why these stone homes, and then I wouldn't see them in other parts of the country. And it was about a dozen years ago, I came across this book at Barnes & Noble. It's called The Cobblestone Quest, and it's by Rich and Sue Freeman. And this opened my eyes to so much, and I'm going to share some of this today. Among the many features of this book are 17 different road tours around Western New York, highlighting the many good examples of cobblestone buildings. My sister and I drove around and I took a lot of the pictures, so you're going to see some of them today. And then I learned there's a cobblestone museum in Albion, New York. You should go, it's very interesting. Much of the information in this book is from the Landmarks Society of Western New York, which was founded in 1937 for the purpose of maintaining unique architectural heritage of Western New York. This organization was founded 10 years before the National Trust for Historical Preservation. The Landmarks Society is one of the oldest and most active preservative organizations in America. The authors also contacted 37 town historians for additional information and for the location of some of these buildings. So what is a cobblestone? A stone that can be held in one hand. And I have a few of them up here. There's some this size, some smaller, different color, even lighter. So a pebble is really small, and I'm wearing some of the pebbles that you would find on Lake Ontario. And if it was a boulder, then it would take two hands to hold. So it's one hand for a cobblestone. Geologists define cobblestones as measuring from 2.5 inches to 10 inches. And they can be a variety of colors, which reflects the color, sandstone, quartzite, limestone, and more. Show the rocks. These are just some of the pictures of rocks that I took right on our back beach. The retreating glaciers of the Ice Age left mountains of debris in fields and on the lake shores. All cobblestones are a result of water action, either ground by the glaciers, rounded by torrents of water as glaciers melted, or rounded by wave action in streams and lakes. There are field cobbles and angular stones gathered too from the glacial till and outwash deposits along Ridge Road. And I'm talking about the old Route 104. So from Rochester to Buffalo, the other way to Syracuse, all along that ridge is where you'll find most of these stones. They are the lake wash cobbles found all along New York's shoreline of Lake Ontario. This home is in Albion, New York, and it's a beautiful example of early cobblestone construction, built in 1840. Notice that it has mixed colored fieldstones. Next one. This is a famous house in Rochester. It's called the Tinker House in Henrietta. And this one's made with fieldstones, so you can tell that the stones are a little bit bigger. It's mixed colors, and this was very early construction. In fact, these right here on the top were stones that they cut to make them look like that. The next one. This is 17 Church Street in Pittsford. And it was built in 1842 by Samuel Crump. It was first used as a school from 1842 to 1891. Then it was a Masonic lodge for 125 plus years. And now it's been remodeled as a private home. A perfect example of a cobblestone building. So the piece of paper that I gave you, you've got what they call the coins. And these are these great big thick corner stones on the buildings. The coins are large blocks made of quarried limestone, Lockport dolostone, or Onondaga limestone. They add structural integrity to the corners of the buildings. And they're 12 inches high and 18 inches long. They add, and you'll notice, and I'm not sure you can see it as well in this picture, but there's courses right here of stones. So people will say, oh, that's a 4-course house that's got the coins in between. Many have a gabled area over the, up at the top too. You also have lintels. Lintels are the part up above here of the windows and over the door. And many times they were limestone also. Now the water table is this right here. You can see it there, and it goes all the way across. It sticks out 2 to 3 inches from the face of the wall, and it separates the foundation from the cobblestone wall, so it prevents water from wicking up into the cobblestone and mortar. That's really important. Now, these cobblestones on this Pittsford house are smaller than the 2 I showed you before. The cobblestone craft remains peculiar to this region of New York State, with over 90% of the cobblestone buildings in the United States residing within a 75-mile radius of Rochester. This pre-Civil War form of construction developed, flourished, spread, and died out within less than a half a century, and more like just 30 years. The next one. It was really from 1832 to 1860. Cobblestone construction holds its place in history as the last generation of completely hand-built houses. Estimates vary, like Ellen said, but approximately 700 to 1,200 cobblestone buildings were built in the United States. 600 to 900 of them are here in New York State, spread in over 25 counties from the Hudson River to Niagara Falls. Wayne County, right next door, has 170. They have the most. Monroe County has 106. Ontario County has 101. Orleans has 98. Niagara has 47, and all the rest have 25 or less. The southernmost cobblestone building is in Hornell, New York. Around 70 known cobblestone buildings are in the Midwest, Ontario, Canada, and Colorado. And the Masons probably migrated west in the 1840s and 50s and carried their craft with them. So there are a few other places. Now, how did the cobblestone craft come about? After the American Revolution, settlers pushed west over central and western New York, and they cleared the land for farming and built log or hand-hewn frame cabins from materials on hand. The streams were dammed to power mills to process more lumber. And by 1820, brickyards, stone quarries, lime kilns, and glass factories were prevalent. So now you had a choice of building materials. Along comes the Erie Canal in 1825. This created an economic boom. Wheat prices jumped, farmers cleared their land more, they planted much more crop, they were getting wealthy. Now they went from little houses, they wanted something bigger. The farmers prospered and wanted larger homes. But lumber was hard to work to get and was needed for fences, sheds, barns. And the lumber of the country, which was in big demand, and the Erie Canal made transporting it to distant markets very economical. Bricks were expensive, but stones could be gathered from fields and streams for free. Other benefits to cobblestone construction, they were fireproof and they built to last. Paint was very expensive then, so cobblestones were easier and less expensive to maintain then. Then's kind of a key word. Gathering the stones was the responsibility of the future homeowner, not the mason. For field cobbles, boys were often paid 10 cents a day to walk beside a stone boat, and that was a sled pulled by the oxen, very low to the ground, and it had sled runners underneath it, to collect the stones turned up by the plowing. Wheat was often taken in ox carts to Sodas Bay for shipment on Lake Ontario. So they would gather the cobblestones from the lake, put them on the empty ox carts, and they would come back to the places that wanted them. The stone gathering process took years, and once gathered had to be sorted by size and sometimes by color. This was a job for children and women using a sorting board. The boards were different length, they might be about this long, and they'd have different size holes. So if you wanted a certain look on your house, you wanted all the ones the same size. And so you would sort the stones that way. Now, who were these masons? Most remain anonymous. Records from only a few masons have survived. Because there were so many houses built over a short period of time, there must have been a lot of masons doing this work. But there is evidence shows that only a few masons built more than 3 or 4 homes. Many of the homes were built by their owners, who learned the construction techniques by word of mouth or from periodicals. One such periodical, called the Genesee Farmer, published a series of inquiries and responses from farmers asking about the process of cobblestone building. The responses say nothing about needing extra special equipment or skills or locating even a skilled mason. So many farmers found by applying good old Yankee ingenuity to these free stones allowed the farmer the killing of 2 birds with 1 stone. Clear your field and build a house. The masons created their own designs and mixed up their own concoctions of soft lime mortar. You didn't go to the store to buy this. You had to make it yourself, and the mortar was the glue that held the stones together. Recipes were different depending on the proportion of ingredients of lime, sand, and water. Those are the only 3 ingredients. Now, it also might depend on the quality of the ingredients and the mixing and the storing methods. So it was quoted by one historian that masons kept secrets to themselves, just like cooks keep secrets. The magic of this soft lime mortar was that it was allowed to cure very, very slowly. and that let the stones set and bear weight. It took 35 years for the mortar to completely harden, which gave time for buildings to settle without cracking. This was pre-Portland cement days. Today, cobblestone buildings cannot be repaired using modern mortars that use Portland cement because it dries too hard, and it dries too fast, and it pushes the cobbles right out. Now, a good mason could lay 4 courses, which is about 18 to 24 inches across the front or across whatever you were building, a wall per day. Now, that's not much, is it, when you think of these whole houses? Generally, the other thing was only one mason worked on a house at a time, so work would progress slowly, and that also was good because it allowed the mortar between the stones to begin to set, creating a very strong and weatherproof surface. It could take a couple of years to complete a home. First, they had to build a supporting rubble wall, and then they put a veneer of cobbles was added to the outside. Walls were very thick, sometimes this thick. Can you imagine their window wells? Wouldn't they be great, big deep sills? A mason's pay was $1 to $1.50 per day, plus board for a 10 to 12-hour workday. Cobblestone masonry was a real folk art. It was very primitive at first, using large field stones, and then became highly refined toward the end of that time period. The earlier examples of cobblestone homes or buildings used mainly field cobbles, varying in size, color, and shape. Later examples show the use of smaller, rounded lake cobbles. The masons competed for design originality, such as setting the stones horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. Some were built with uniform, small, single-color stones, especially on the front of the building. They didn't worry about the sides or the back, and I'll show you a couple pictures. Cobbles became a veneer against structural rubble stone wall. Typically, the front of the house had an intricate pattern and planar rows for the sides of the house. No 2 cobblestone houses are alike, and a majority of the cobblestone houses are in Greek Revival style. This is the front of the Methodist Church on Ridge Road in Elton. The lake cobbles were collected by the congregation here. Now just look at all those stones. How long must have taken to sort them and then do by color? There are 4 rows of red, and then they had 4 rows of white. I thought that was such a neat building and very well kept up. Next one. This is a close-up of that, the 4 rows of red and then the 4 rows of white. Next one. One of my neighbors at the cottage who made this jewelry from lake washed pebbles, I found out she lived in a cobblestone house in Sodas. And I said, can I come over and see your house? And she said, sure. So this is her house on Maxwell Road in Sodas. And you'll notice that the front is totally red, small red cobbles on the front. Next one. This is a close-up of it. So this would be the quoin. And this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of stones. So that one's 5 per quoin, they call it. So she said to me, I said to her, oh, I've been reading this book and I really enjoy it. And she said, right down at the end of the road is Beechwood State Park. And they found an old building with vines growing all over it, and it's falling apart. You gotta go down and take a look at it. This was my find. Now I understood. The next one. So it was a small building. I bet it was 12 by 12. So it was falling apart, obviously. And it was red cobbles. The next one. Now I understand the rubble wall. So you see, first they build this real thick wall of all kinds of stones. Then they put the veneer on the front with the cobbles in the veneer. which I didn't realize, and that's why the walls are so thick, because I got to do the rubber wall first. Next one. There's another view of the wall. You can see how thick it is and how big some of those stones are. Next one. There's the back of the wall, back of the house. Like I said, they like the fronts to be very pretty and decorative, and the backs they don't care about. The next one. Now the next three houses are from where I live, in Perrington, Fairport area. And this one is the Fieldstone Grove house. It's got a huge addition on the back. The next one. This one is a designated Perrington landmark. And you can see this one has reddish color quoins over here versus the more whitish color. Next one. This is a house that needs a little bit of work, but it's on Macedon Center Road. And look, that's almost a 3-story. I don't know if it was added on later. I don't know much history on it. Next one. This church I love. This is the West Walworth Church, the Zion United Methodist. It was so pretty. Beautifully kept, small, multicolored cobbles. The lintels are sandstone. The quoins are limestone, 5 to 6 courses per quoin on that one. Next one. This is the side view of it. And you see the side does look a little different than the front. All right, next one. This is 93 West Main Street in Webster. Originally, it was a residence, and over the years, it's been many businesses, and there's a business in there now today. But what I thought was so unusual about this one, it was built very early, 1939, so it's very early construction, and you can see the stones are a little bit bigger, but look at the lintels on this house. They're bricks, and I had never seen that before. These are bricks up here. The next one. This shows a closer look. Even the quoins were brick. So this one would be 1, 2, 3, 4 rows per quoin. The next one. Now this church is the Webster Baptist Church. I've driven by it so many times I never even saw it. There's 2 huge trees in the front yard. And they'll say this about many cobblestone buildings. They'll always say, look for a big tree in the front yard. I never saw it. So I pulled into their driveway and I said, oh my gosh, this is huge. So I found out that 2 men were contracted to build this for their church for $150. It was in 1855. It took them 2 years. This is a big building. Church members helped to gather the stones from Lake Ontario, choosing dark red, water-rounded stones for the front wall and mixed colors on the side. Can you see the difference? Of the 20 cobblestone churches that have been built, this was the largest and is still being used today for its original purpose by the same continuous organization, the Baptist Church. That's amazing. So it was built in 1855 and finished in 1857. It's right on Route 250 as you're coming in. It's right in the village. Just look for the 2 large trees. I drove up the street and then I came back down before I finally found it. Next one. This little school is at the Cobblestone Museum in Childs, New York, which is a little burg outside of Albion. So you're really going to Albion and then just outside of town on 104. And this school is part of the Cobblestone Museum, and it's got beautiful little stones on the front. And the side was not as fancy as the front, for sure. You can tour this building. You might want to call them on a weekend to see if they're open or to make an appointment. There's several buildings you can tour. The next one. This one is their church. And this one is the oldest cobblestone church in North America, 1834. There's a lot of cobblestones there. Can you imagine how long that took? And you can tour inside that. They do use it about 2 times a year, they told me. And that has large wash stones because that was in the early years of the construction, not the finer, smaller cobblestones. Next one. This is just a close-up of a house in Victory, New York. I don't know if you know where Victory is. It's a little crossroad. But the reason why I took this picture, because it was herringbone design on the house. And I hadn't seen that before. I thought it was very interesting. The next one, this is in Wayne County. And why I put this picture in here, it's a very old house. And it's in Wayne County. I can't remember where I saw it, but this is the front door. Okay? And this is a little side door. And I learned that the little side door is called a death door or a coffin door. So before you had funeral parlors, you would have the deceased laid out in your living room, in your best room that you had, and the people would come to the front door, and I guess they would take the body in through the side door, I guess. I thought that was an interesting picture. Next one. This is on North Geneva Road in Sodus. This was built with very small red cobbles. It's 4 courses per coin. And what I liked about this one was the unusual shape of the lintels. See the square piece up above the center? That mason must want to be really special, make his house look fancier than everybody else's. And I've never seen another one like that either. I'm sure there are. Next one. This is the pump house in Fishers, New York, near Victor. And it's next to the Auburn and Rochester railroad tracks. And it was so they could fill the steam engines with water. And it was built in 1845. It's not very wide, it goes back just a little bit. It's the second oldest railroad building in existence. The next one. This big barn is in Elbridge, New York. It was just beautiful. And now it's a garden center, but they've done a nice job of keeping up with this. And you can see it's the big stones, it's not the cobblestones, it's more the field. Next one. And here's a close-up of them. So they're really big field stones. So that's 4 courses per coin. Next one. This is the Wallington Schoolhouse in Sodus. And the coins were limestone and small stones on the front. It looks pretty nice. Look at the next picture. On the left-hand side is the side of the school. So they had the coins, they had the courses, we don't care what kind of rocks. This was the back. No pattern at all, just get those stones up there. Next one. This is the Kimball Tombstone in Meridian, New York. It's 15 feet tall. I just thought it was really cool. Now this next one you should all recognize. It's right here in your backyard. It's a very cool building. You're very lucky to have this. It was built in 1830 by Ransford Perrin, originally on the Ridge Road, and it was moved here in 2008. So you've got a really neat building, and that's large field stones, obviously. The next one. This is the Gentleman's Retreat / Smokehouse. Do you recognize it? Where is it? Across from Seabreeze. And they moved it there. It originally was on the property of the Culver Ridge Fire Department. Now this was built in 1924. So some people say, well, maybe not, it's really cobblestone, but it's a beautiful building. I guess gentlemen would take their friends there to smoke cigars and play cards. And other things maybe, yeah, who knows. The next one. This is on Pardee Road. And this one has really fine little red cobbles on the front. I couldn't get to the side real well. It had a couple big, huge trees in the front yard, and I didn't want to walk on people's property. But this was built in 1847, so we're getting closer to the end of this time period, and it was built by Hiram Pardee. So that's a really nice looking house. Next one. This one I drove by twice before I found it. It's referred to by the Cobblestone Museum Organization as the Flint Grimwood House. And I looked it up, and there were two different families that owned this. One was Flint, and years later it was Grimwood. So I guess that's why they call it that. Do you know where this one is? It's on St. Paul Boulevard. And it's got a big front yard, and there's a line of trees. So that's why I think I kept missing it. But that's a pretty cool house. There was a cobblestone schoolhouse on Culver Road near Bay Street, but that's been demolished. Did anybody know that school? Nobody remembers it? All right, the next one. This is in West Bloomfield. And my husband and I attended a program at the Pittsford Library about this building. Todd and Alicia Campbell own this building on Route 20, and they have spent 9 years restoring it. And she did a lot of the work herself. I was really impressed. At the top of the building, in that oval, it says 1841, Ontario and Livingston Mutual Insurance. Today it is a gift shop. Next one. This one's in Victor, and it's on Route 96 and McMahon Road. McMahon Road is the one going back. When I first saw it, you couldn't even tell what it was. Trees were overgrown. The bushes were taller than the windows. And every once in a while, I would drive by to see what was happening. And this is how it looks today. Somebody has done a lot of work and fixed it up. It's really quite nice. It's housed many businesses since the mid-1830s, and even a gas station at one time. Now, why were cobblestone buildings no longer built after 1860? The outbreak of the Civil War caused inflation, so masonry labor for cobblestone buildings became too expensive and too time-consuming. The supply of small stones became more difficult to come by, and if the stones had to be brought in from far away, now you're paying transportation costs, so it wasn't very practical. By now, we had more efficient construction methods were developed, such as fast-drying Portland cement, wooden balloon frame construction, and mass-produced bricks. Common folklore was that the canal masons, especially the Irish and the Scots, left unemployed by the completion of the Erie Canal in 1825, turned to cobblestone masonry to apply their skills. I don't know if you've heard this or not, but the authors of this book dispute this theory, and I'll tell you their reasons. They said the canal reconstruction, primarily widening and in some cases relocating it completely, began almost following the original completion in 1825. So now the canal's open in 1825, and with about 5 or 6 years, they realized we got to make this bigger. So they enlarged it. And that required mason skills in the time frame of 1832 to 1860. That's the peak period of cobblestones. So could we have masons doing the canal work and building the houses? You know, I don't think we'll ever know the true answer. And the masonry of canal locks and aqueducts involved much larger stone and was a completely different building technique and skills than did the cobblestone masonry. So, you know, that was their reasoning behind that. And in the book, they said how to spot a cobblestone building. Well, of course, you look for a house with lots of stones on it, but they said look for big old trees in the front yard, and then look and see if you can see a haggard-looking owner. Because cobblestone buildings do consume significant time and money to maintain. The next time you're out for a ride, especially on rural and country roads, keep your eyes open. You won't be disappointed by what you see. Now, I've got some pictures up here I've got I'll leave my book out here if somebody would like to look at it. I also got this on eBay. This is Cobblestone Landmarks of New York State. That's quite old. This is from the museum. If you go to Albion Child's area and go to the museum, you get to pick up one of these and it tells you where there's houses. And I think they've got close to 10 houses now. And then a friend of mine gave me this magazine from the Landmark Society. And I've never seen this before, and you'd have to look at it up close. It's a cobblestone house in the Finger Lakes area, and they don't say where exactly it is. But you can see little black holes. And what that was, those are called plugging holes on the exterior. They were the holes that the scaffolding was placed in when the house was built. And usually they were filled in with stone when the house was finished. But for some reason, the homeowners wanted the original builder, left them exposed. So that's a real interesting picture, if you'd like to come up and see that. So does anyone here live in a cobblestone house? No? Okay, I always like to ask, because the last time I was talking in Fairport, a young couple came up to me and they said, yeah, we do. And I said, where's your house? In Pulteneyville. And it's right on the main street. It's not on the water side, but it's a really pretty little, and it's not little, cobblestone house. So you might want to check that out. So cobblestonemuseum.org has so much information about all the houses. All you got to do is go to explore, and then it'll have all the counties. Click your county, and then clicked Irondequoit, and it had the houses, information on them. So you can check out many different houses. So I'm not an expert, but I sure do enjoy looking at them and learning a little bit more about them each time. So thank you. Yeah, any questions? I'll try to answer.
How do they repair them?
I asked the young couple that, and they said they have found somebody, but it's not easy. It's hard. And I'm sure people that own them probably talk to each other, and they might stop and say, hey, who did you have? Because it's got to be a special person to fix them.
But they can't use the hard concrete.
No, they've got to come up with a mixture of their own special recipe. Yeah. Yes.
Mary, I'm wondering, was it up to the mason or was it up to the homeowner as far as the pattern that was done?
Don't know.
Herringbone?
Don't know.
Okay.
I'm sure the mason was thinking, oh, let's do something a little different on this house and check with the owner. I mean, I really don't know. And there's very little written down history of how they did it or anything else.
In my work, I travel 104 out west through Gaines and that area, and there are a number of them along 31 and that are.
Right. You may have some of your favorites. I don't know if you know of any others.
When we come across it from Canada, from Niagara Falls on 104, it's always kind of a game to count, see if how many we can count along 104.
And you go along the lake
close
road.
to 40 between
Really?
and Greece. You can
Yeah.
spot about 40 homes between Niagara Falls.
Yeah, I've got a list of all the counties up here if
So I think
anybody's
we passed that
curious.
museum. It's got a chunk, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Question. I may have missed it, I was writing so many notes. How long have you lived in your house? What's the history of it?
I don't live in one.
Oh, I thought you did.
No, don't. I wish I could, but no, I don't. No.
There's one near where you live.
No, I live in Fairport. No, there were those three outside of town.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Yes,
What is the problem with them? Do some of the stones tend to pop out?
yes. I've read lately that the early construction, the ones that didn't have the fancy veneer on, they last longer. The later ones that were built like in the 1840s and 1850s that used the fancy veneer on the front, they're crumbling a little bit more. Because it's a little bit, I guess thinner. I don't know. Yes?
Cobblestone homes, my conclusion is the walls are thick with stone, concrete. How about insulation inside the house? I mean, you have a.
Somebody else asked me that, I don't know, I think it's just the stone and the mortar, Maybe they tried to put insulation in later, I don't know. And I figure on the inside, it must be a plaster wall,
Okay.
you know,
Might
smooth.
have insulation behind it. I'm just wondering how they stay warm. in the
I think it
winter.
holds the heat.
I
And
think
then-
they do. My parents had some friends who lived in a cobblestone house in Scottsville for quite a few years. And they did a lot of work on it when they were there, but they, I think the walls were so thick that it kept kept the heat in really well.
And it kept you cool in the summer.
Right.
Yeah. They're very interesting. They're just so much fun to look at. Yes?
There was a dilapidated little cobblestone on the north side of the road that runs toward Gananda. I don't know if you're familiar with it. So you walk 441,
Oh,
make a right-hand turn, and it goes out to Gananda. We used to sit up there on the left side of the hill. I didn't know if in your travels you'd seen it or.
I probably went by it. I might not know. Yeah. But if you said it's falling apart?
Oh, it was in terrible shape
Yeah.
15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, they're a lot of work. It's gotta cost a lot of money. I can't imagine. People renovating homes and there's a business in there. I'm not sure what the business is, but boy, that one looks so much better.
Are they considered landmarks with tax deductions?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know that answer. Yes,
How many of them are open to public?
most not. Most are privately owned. That's why if you wanna go see them, go down to Childs, to the Cobblestone Museum.
What's it like there?
What's it like?
Well, does it have houses in there, parts?
Yes, they do have some houses. So they had the church, they had, the school, they had a little house. And if I remember correctly, I think Horace Greeley lived in this house for a short time. And then they have some other homes which I haven't seen yet.
Did they move them there?
I don't think so.
They were all in the
So
same
this,
community?
well, those three I just mentioned were right in a row. So, yeah.
Speaking of moving, how pray tell did the one here, is it, how do you keep all the concrete and
I
stuff?
don't know. I have to ask Cricket. Cricket, do you know? Yes.
I can answer that pretty thoroughly because Pete Matthews, Matthews Building Movers, moved that. I've known him, well, since we were a little kid. Anyhow, depends how much you want to hear. The building had no foundation. So normally they jack a building up and put steel beams under, maybe 5 spots one way and a couple the next. But there was nothing you could put the beams on. So they went all the way around the building, digging out like a 3-foot section, about 2 feet deep. And they put reinforced concrete underneath with rebar. And then when that settled, it got hard.
Wow.
They go the next 3 feet, and the next 3 feet, all the way around the building. And then they put in, it looked like a complete skeleton inside because there were probably 40 long cross braces that held up all the walls. And they put 4x4 steel angles on all the corners and wrapped the cable around it and cinched it all tight. That little building weighs 80 tons on that little tiny footprint. And Pete said it was probably the hardest move they ever had, because you never knew if it was just
It's gonna crumble.
crumble.
Yeah.
So when they drove it down Kings Highway, I think they were going 2 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah.
He said that was as fast as they could go.
Wow, it's amazing.
From the Historical Society standpoint, his brother, when they were digging there, he found a little porcelain doll, he didn't know what it was, and he threw it away. And then he went and told, yeah, he said, yeah, that wasn't anything important, was it?
Wasn't.
But that was what was involved, and then they built a new foundation.
That's amazing.
Here, and they set it down.
How long did it take them to prep it?
So it was a couple months. And they had an old army forklift, camel forklift. And they had to roll it off the lot, now they had to come down the curve. And even with planks, there's about, maybe a couple inch drop where everybody held it cracks.
So I could just,
It's
it's fine.
quite a project.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you, Mary. That was